Tiffany Park's Louboutin heel pressed against the stranger's chest, grinding sand into the soaked white shirt. Amara felt the gun barrel, cold, unforgiving, kiss her temple. "Finish what the ocean started," Tiffany purred to her hired thug. What Tiffany didn't know, the man she was about to execute wasn't a vagrant. He was Kang Jae-Wook, head of the Seven Stars Syndicate, and the last person who'd threatened what belonged to him had their entire bloodline erased from Seoul in 72 hours. Amara saw it first, the shift in his eyes, from warm brown to something ancient and pitiless, the subtle curl of his fingers, a signal. In the tree line, shadows moved. 72 hours earlier, Tiffany whispered, "Goodbye, darling," and shoved Kang Jae-Wook off her yacht into the Black Ocean, toasting his empire with co-conspirators before his body even stopped sinking. 8 miles away, lifeguard Amara Igwe spotted a dark shape in the storm-thrashed surf and dove. The ocean fought her every stroke, but she dragged the waterlogged man to shore, blue-lipped, no pulse, gone. She cracked his ribs with CPR until he convulsed back to life. She thought she'd saved a drowning tourist. She'd actually resurrected South Korea's most dangerous mafia boss. Kang Jae-Wook woke in her shack with no memory, but his body remembered violence. When a drunk grabbed Amara's wrist at the docks, Kang Jae-Wook broke the man's fingers before conscious thought kicked in. Amara bandaged his knuckles, calling it muscle memory. She had no idea how right she was. While Tiffany's mercenaries combed the coastline and Kang Jae-Wook's hidden security team tracked the signal from his embedded molar, 3 days passed in that weathered shack. 3 days of manufactured helplessness, hiding a predator learning new territory. Now, as Tiffany stood on Amara's beach with a gun, she was about to learn a fundamental truth. The sea doesn't kill monsters. It only makes them angrier. And Kang Jae-Wook was awake. Before we dive in, understand this. What you're about to hear isn't just a romance. It's a collision between a woman running from her grief and a man whose own empire tried to drown him. A lifeguard known as the Black Mermaid who saves lives to pay for a ghost. A ruthless mafia king who forgot his name, but whose body never forgot violence. And a betrayal so cold, it's about to wake up a sleeping dragon. Now, if you've been watching stories like this and haven't subscribed yet, trust me, no pressure. But if, by the time the mercenaries step onto that beach, your pulse starts racing, if you find yourself holding your breath when the muscle memory kicks in, if you feel the satisfaction of a villain realizing they made a fatal mistake, then tap that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because stories like this, they don't just entertain, they haunt you. Alright, let me show you what happens when you try to kill a monster, but only succeed in making him angry. Amara Igwe had been alone for 3 years, and she preferred it that way. The other lifeguards called her the Black Mermaid, half admiration, half unease. She didn't join them for soju after shifts, didn't laugh at their jokes or share stories about close calls. She arrived before dawn, scanned the water with those sharp, unblinking eyes, and left when the last tourist cleared the beach. She was the best swimmer on Jeju Island, and everyone knew it. What they didn't know was why she'd chosen this isolated stretch of coastline, far from the resort beaches where the money was better and the work was easier. Amara didn't save lives for the paycheck. She saved them because she couldn't save the one that mattered. Her younger brother, Chidi, had drowned while she was at university, too far away to hear him calling for help. The guilt had followed her across continents, from Lagos to Seoul to this remote corner of rock and tide. Every body she pulled from the water was penance. Every breath she forced back into blue lips was an apology to a ghost who'd never answer. The storm hit without warning. One moment the sky was the color of old bruises. The next the wind turned vicious, whipping the sea into a frothing rage. The warning sirens wailed. Tourists scattered like startled birds. Amara stood her ground, binoculars raised, scanning the churning water. That's when she saw it. A dark shape tumbling in the surf. Not driftwood, not debris. A body. Her radio crackled. "Amara, stand down. Water's too dangerous." She was already running, her feet hitting the sand in perfect rhythm, her red rescue buoy trailing behind her like a comet's tail. The ocean roared its challenge. Amara dove straight into its teeth. The ocean tried to kill her. Every wave was a fist slamming into her chest. The current dragged at her legs like hands pulling her under. Salt water burned her eyes, her throat, her lungs. But Amara had made peace with drowning a long time ago. If the sea wanted her, it would have to fight for it. She reached him as he sank beneath the surface for what might have been the last time. Her fingers caught fabric, expensive, she noted distantly, and she locked her arm around his torso. He was deadweight, massive and unresponsive. The buoy barely kept them afloat. "Come on," she gasped, kicking toward shore. "Don't you dare die on me." The swim back felt infinite. Her muscles screamed, her lungs begged for mercy. Twice waves nearly tore him from her grip. Twice she held tighter. When her knees finally scraped sand, she dragged him onto the beach and rolled him onto his back. No pulse, lips blue, eyes closed. Amara's training took over. She tilted his head back, checked his airway, locked her hands over his sternum and pushed hard. His ribs gave with a sickening crack, but she didn't stop. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Repeat. "Breathe," she commanded between compressions. "Breathe, damn you." Nothing. She pressed harder, faster, her own breath coming in ragged sobs now. She'd pulled 17 people from this ocean in 3 years. She wasn't going to lose number 18. On the 4th cycle, he convulsed. Water erupted from his mouth in a violent torrent. His chest heaved, dragging in air with a sound like tearing metal. His eyes snapped open, dark, wild, unfocused. He grabbed Amara's wrist with surprising strength, his lips moving. "Nugu?" he rasped in Korean. "Who?" Then his eyes rolled back, and he went limp again. But he was breathing. Amara collapsed beside him, her own chest heaving, and laughed. A broken, relieved sound the storm swallowed whole. He woke to the smell of salt and wood smoke. The ceiling was unfamiliar. Rough wooden beams, gaps where the rain leaked through. Not his penthouse, not his safe house, nowhere he recognized. Jae-Wook tried to sit up, and pain exploded through his ribs. He hissed, collapsing back against the thin mattress. "Don't move," a woman's voice, accented English. "Your ribs are cracked. I had to break them to save you." He turned his head slowly. She sat in a rickety chair by the door, watching him with the stillness of a predator. Dark skin, coiled hair pulled back, eyes that had seen death and hadn't blinked. Beautiful, some distant part of him noted. Dangerous, another part whispered. "Who are you?" he asked in English, his voice raw. "Amara, I pulled you out of the ocean 3 days ago." She leaned forward, her gaze sharp. "Who are you?" He opened his mouth to answer and found nothing. No name, no past, just fragments, the taste of betrayal, the cold shock of water falling, and before that, shadows, violence, power. "I don't know," he said finally. She studied him like she was deciding whether to believe him. "You don't remember anything?" No, it wasn't entirely true.
He remembered instincts, the way his body tensed when she moved too quickly, the automatic calculation of exits, weapons, threats. He remembered that he'd been someone people feared. But her? When she'd touched his wrist to check his pulse, something in him had gone quiet, still, like a blade finally sheathed. It unnerved him. "You're safe here," Amara said, standing. "Rest. We'll figure out who you are when you're stronger." She moved toward the door and panic, irrational, sudden, gripped him. "Wait." She paused. "Stay," he said. Not a command, a request. "Please." Amara looked at him for a long moment, then pulled her chair closer and sat. Neither of them spoke, but for the first time since he'd woken, Jae-Wook felt like he could breathe. Tiffany Park stood on the deck of the yacht, champagne flute trembling in her manicured hand. "What do you mean, no body?" The harbor master shifted uncomfortably, his uniform soaked from the rain. "We've swept the coordinates 3 times, Miss Park. The currents were strong that night. If he went overboard, he could be anywhere along the southern coastline by now. Or," he hesitated, "the deep water could have taken him." She forced her face into a mask of grief, daubing at dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. "My fiancé is missing, and you're telling me you just gave up?" "We haven't given up, ma'am, but in storms like that, survival is unlikely. Yes, I understand." She turned away, dismissing him with a wave. "Thank you for your efforts." The moment he left, the grief shattered like glass. Tiffany pulled out her phone and dialed. "He's not dead." The voice on the other end was smooth, Russian accented. "You sound certain." "The body wasn't recovered. That means there's a chance, however small, that he survived." Tiffany paced the deck, heels clicking against polished wood. "If Jae-Wook is alive and regains his memory, everything we've built collapses. The contracts, the territory agreements, the 7 stars, it all reverts to him. What do you need?" "Mercenaries, discreet ones. Sweep every beach, every fishing village, every clinic along the Jeju coastline. If he washed ashore, someone found him. And when we locate him?" Tiffany's reflection stared back from the rain-streaked window, beautiful, cold, hungry. "Finish what the ocean started." She ended the call and poured herself another glass of champagne. Kang Jae-Wook had built an empire on fear and blood. Now it was hers, and she would burn the whole island down before she let a ghost take it back. Jae-Wook healed faster than any normal man should. By day 5, he was walking without wincing. By day 7, the bruises that had painted his torso purple and black had faded to yellow shadows. Amara watched him move around her tiny shack with the fluid grace of someone whose body was a weapon, even if his mind couldn't remember how to use it. The first sign came during breakfast. A fly buzzed near the table. Jae-Wook's hand shot out, too fast to track, and when he opened his fist, the fly lay stunned but alive between his chopsticks. He stared at it, confused. "How did I—" "Muscle memory," Amara said, though her pulse had quickened. "That wasn't luck. That was training." He released the fly and said nothing. The second sign came when he noticed the loose board on her porch. Without asking, he found her toolbox, organized it first, she noted, by size and function, and spent the afternoon repairing things she had learned to live with. The squeaky door hinge, the cracked window frame, the table leg that wobbled. He worked in silence, his movements precise and economical. No wasted motion, no second guessing. "You don't have to do this," Amara said, watching him reinforce the doorframe. "You saved my life." He didn't look up. "This is nothing." But it wasn't nothing. Every swing of the hammer was controlled, every measurement exact. He worked like a man who understood structure, leverage, weak points. That night, Amara lay awake listening to him breathe in the next room. She'd saved 17 people in 3 years, tourists mostly, drunk locals, reckless kids. None of them had moved like him. None of them made her feel like she'd pulled a loaded gun from the ocean and invited it into her home. The rain returned on the 10th night, softer this time, drumming against the tin roof like a lullaby. Amara cooked jollof rice, her mother's recipe, the one taste of home she'd carried across the world. Jae-Wook watched her move through the small kitchen with quiet fascination, the way she stirred the pot with practiced rhythm, tasting and adjusting without measuring. They ate in comfortable silence at first, the kind that only comes when two people have stopped performing for each other. "Why here?" he asked, finally. "You're too skilled for this isolated post. You could work the resort beaches, make real money." Amara's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. "I'm not here for the money." "Then why?"
She set down her spoon, debating. Something about the storm, the intimacy of the small space, the way he looked at her, no judgment, just curiosity, made her answer. "My brother drowned when I was 21. I was too far away to save him." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "Every person I pull from that water is him. Every breath I force back into blue lips is the one I couldn't give Chidi." Jae-Wook reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The touch was gentle, deliberate. "I'm sorry," he said. They sat like that for a moment, then he withdrew his hand and stared at his rice. "I think I was a bad man," he said quietly. "Before. I don't remember specifics, but I feel it. In my bones, like violence is a language I spoke fluently." He looked up at her. "Does that frighten you?" Amara studied him, this broken stranger who fixed her home, who moved like death but touched her like she was fragile. "No," she said honestly. "Bad men don't ask that question." His eyes held hers, dark and intense. "Maybe I should." The black SUVs arrived at dawn, their tires carving deep wounds into the pristine sand. Amara saw them from her morning patrol, 4 vehicles in military formation, windows tinted dark as sin. Wrong. Everything about them was wrong. Tourists didn't arrive like an invasion force. She reached for her radio, but a hand caught her wrist. Jae-Wook. He'd followed her out, moving soundlessly despite the loose sand. His face had gone completely still, his eyes tracking the vehicles with predatory focus. "Get inside," he said quietly. "This is my beach. I don't—" The door of the lead SUV opened. A woman stepped out, and Amara understood immediately why Jae-Wook had tensed. She was beautiful in the way of expensive things, designer sunglasses, a white pantsuit that cost more than Amara made in 6 months, Louboutin heels sinking into sand they were never meant to touch. Men in tactical gear emerged from the other vehicles, fanning out with the precision of a military unit. They carried themselves like soldiers, but their eyes were dead. Mercenaries. The woman removed her sunglasses, scanning the beach with cold calculation. When her gaze landed on Amara's shack, something flickered across her face. Recognition. Then hunger. She started walking toward them, her heels clicking against scattered shells, utterly unconcerned about the armed men flanking her. Beside Amara, Jae-Wook's breathing had changed, slower, deeper, the way an animal breathes before it attacks. "Do you know her?" Amara whispered. His jaw clenched. I don't know, but my body does." Tiffany's smile widened as she studied Jae-Wook, the sun-damaged skin, the borrowed clothes hanging loose on his frame, the way he stood slightly hunched, protecting his still-healing ribs. "My God," she breathed, circling them like a shark. "You actually survived. I have to admit, Jae-Wook, I'm almost impressed." The name landed like a physical blow. Jae-Wook saw Amara flinch, saw something flicker behind his eyes, recognition trying to surface through the fog. "You know me?" he said, not a question. "Know you?" Tiffany laughed, the sound crystalline and cruel. "Darling, I was engaged to you.
Well, was being the operative word, before I gave you a much-needed swimming lesson. Amara's blood went cold. You pushed him. Shoved, technically, though I prefer to think of it as aggressive retirement planning. Tiffany's gaze slid to Amara, assessing and dismissing her in the same breath. And you must be the little hero who ruined my perfectly executed murder. How inconvenient. She snapped her fingers. 2 mercenaries stepped forward, weapons drawn. Clean up the trash, Tiffany ordered, nodding toward Amara. The black girl goes in the ocean. Make it look accidental. As for my dear fiancé, she pulled a small pistol from her purse, the metal gleaming in the morning sun. I'll handle this one personally. Can't trust good help these days. Amara's muscles coiled, ready to fight, to run, to do something. Jae-Wook stepped in front of her. The movement was subtle, but absolute, a wall of flesh and bone between Amara and the guns. No, he said quietly. Tiffany raised her eyebrow. Excuse me? You don't touch her. Something in his voice changed. The confusion was gone. In its place was something ancient and terrifying, a glacier beginning to crack. Tiffany pressed the gun against his forehead. Or what, darling? The gun against his forehead should have terrified him. It didn't. What terrified him was the second mercenary grabbing Amara's arm, dragging her toward the water. She fought. God, she fought like a wildcat, but he was twice her size, armored, trained, and something inside Jae-Wook shattered. Memory hit like a tidal wave. Not fragments, not sensations, everything. His name, his empire, the Seven Stars Syndicate stretching across 3 countries, the men he'd killed, the fortunes he'd built, the woman standing before him, whispering sweet poison in his ear while signing contracts behind his back, the woman who'd tried to erase him. But most importantly, most critically, he remembered what happened to people who threatened what was his. His posture changed. Tiffany saw it. Her smile faltered as Jae-Wook straightened, the broken invalid melting away like a discarded costume. His eyes, once warm, confused, went flat and cold as black ice. Let her go. Each word was a death sentence. Tiffany laughed, but it sounded nervous now. You can barely stand. You're unarmed. Jae-Wook moved. The pistol never fired. He twisted, caught her wrist, and the bone snapped with a sound like a branch breaking. Tiffany screamed. The gun fell to the sand. Before the mercenaries could react, Jae-Wook made a subtle gesture with his left hand. 3 fingers, a specific pattern. In the tree line, shadows moved. 12 red laser dots appeared on the mercenaries' chests. Release her, Jae-Wook said calmly, or I paint this beach with your insides. The mercenary dropped Amara like she'd burned him. Figures emerged from the trees, men in black tactical gear moving with lethal precision. One of them dropped to his knee. Boss, you're alive. Jae-Wook smiled. It was a terrible thing. I got better.
Tiffany's mercenaries never stood a chance. Jae-Wook's men moved like water, fluid, silent, absolute. 3 seconds, that's all it took, to disarm 4 trained killers and force them to their knees in the sand. Tiffany clutched her broken wrist, her perfect composure crumbling as she watched her hired army rendered useless. You can't. I have contracts, agreements. The syndicate territories are already mine. Jae-Wook's voice cut through her babbling like a blade. They were always mine. You were just keeping the seat warm. The rhythmic thump of helicopter blades grew louder. 2 black choppers descended onto the beach, sand whipping into violent spirals. More men emerged, these ones wearing the subtle pin of the 7 stars on their collars. One approached with a tablet. Sir, all territories secured. Miss Park's co-conspirators are in custody. Your accounts have been unfrozen. Jae-Wook took the tablet, scrolled briefly, then handed it back. His eyes never left Tiffany. Kang Jae-Wook, he said, as if introducing himself for the first time. Head of the Seven Stars Syndicate. Perhaps you've heard of me? Tiffany's face went white. Please, I can explain. We can make a deal. A deal? He laughed, the sound empty of humor. You pushed me into the ocean and tried to murder the woman who saved my life. What deal could possibly interest me? He turned to his men.
Strip her of everything, accounts, properties, passport. Then give her a life vest and a compass. Tiffany's eyes widened in horror. What? Jae-Wook leaned close, his voice soft and deadly. You wanted me to swim. Now it's your turn. Seoul is 800 kilometers north. Start swimming. His men dragged her toward the water, her screams dissolving into the crash of waves. Jae-Wook turned to Amara, and the monster vanished. Are you hurt? 1 year later, the fortress rose from the cliffs like a sentinel, all glass and steel and unspoken threat. From the balcony, Amara could see her old beach, the weathered shack still standing among the rocks. Jae-Wook had offered to demolish it, to build something grander in its place. She'd refused. Some altars needed to remain untouched. You're thinking about him again, Jae-Wook said, stepping behind her. His arms circled her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. A year together, and he still touched her like she might disappear. Chidi would have liked you, Amara said softly. He always rooted for the broken things. I'm not broken anymore. No, she turned in his arms, studying the man who'd emerged from the ocean without a name and conquered an empire to keep her safe. The monster and the king still lived behind his eyes. She saw them when he took calls from Tokyo, when he negotiated territory disputes, when someone made the mistake of disrespecting her in his presence. But here, on this balcony, watching the water that tried to kill him and given him salvation in the same breath, he was just a man who'd learned that some debts couldn't be paid in blood and gold. The others are asking when you'll take a formal role in the syndicate. Amara smiled. Tell them I'm busy. Doing what? Saving your life. Still, she touched his chest, felt his heartbeat, steady, strong, hers, every single day. He kissed her forehead, and they stood together as the sun set over Jeju Island, watching the water that brought a dragon and a mermaid together. Some rescues, it turned out, saved both the drowning and the drowned. Sometimes the person you pull from the wreckage ends up being the only one who can keep you afloat. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe for more incredible true stories that prove even monsters can be saved by the right hands.